Hello there and welcome to my arty corner here on YouTube. I'm Angela Porter, and I love to draw. And having been a science teacher for 28 years, and I taught SMART in that time as well, I also like to encourage people to draw for the pleasure of drawing and to try to debunk some myths about what makes art great or doesn't, or what you need to be considered an artist or a creative that we're taught from early childhood. I may not touch on that today, but we shall see. I don't know. But autumn is incoming, and I can see out of my window flashes of colours as trees are beginning to change. I can see some reds in the far distance. Not a lot yet. There's some golden leaves on a tree in a garden opposite me, or a bush, and others are beginning to show that subtle sign. I love autumn. And yeah, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. No apologies to those of you in the Southern Hemisphere who are approaching spring, but you know, I'm influenced by what's in the world around me, I guess, so I make no apologies for that. So I thought that today I might have a look at some autumn motifs or designs. I call them motifs because they tend to appear in my work. I tend to pick on motifs more than anything else, I think, and then put patterns around them. It varies. I like doing just purely abstract. But I thought that'd be quite nice to take a look at, and simple ways of drawing things, and rather than putting them together in an image like I did yesterday. But I'm going to add some colour and shadow and highlight and so on. So what I've got here is I have a piece of, this is grey, it's clay. Fabriano toned paper. It's called clay. It's sort of a warmish grey. It looks a bit cool on the screen, well, on my screen, but it's actually got a hint of warm tones, browns about it. And this one I've cut to be 14 centimetres by 14 centimetres, which equates to 5 3/4 inches. Not that it matters too much because you can choose any size of paper you like. It's just that this kind of size is convenient for the screen, isn't it? Excuse me. And I've got some pens. I've also got a pencil because I may want to draw some outlines in pencil, put some guidelines in. So I've got a Tombow Fudenosuke. It's got the green square on it here, which means it's the harder nib. There's one that has a blue square on it, and that nib is softer. It's a flexible nib, so I can change the thickness of my lines. I've got my Sakura Pigment Sensei 04, which is just about wrecked, and I've got an 01 just in case I want some fine lines. I've also got a selection of Inktense pencils on my desk here, which I was using earlier on, and I may use those today, and water brushes. And I've got easily to hand things like gel pens and so on for different things if I choose to do that. So autumn is the theme, and I think one of the things that appears this time of year are pumpkins. And so I'm going to draw a number of pumpkins along the bottom of this, of different sizes and perhaps from different directions. So my favourite one is a fairly round one, and I start with a sort of ovalish section that is kind of pointier at the top than the bottom. You want it, ideally I'd want it a little bit wider at the bottom. My hand or pen just didn't want to do that really. And then I'm just going to start a little bit over from the top, not the middle, but a little bit over, and I'm going to arc up so that this next arc is a little bit higher, and in this case it's going to end up being a little bit wider at the bottom. The other side is an alternative one, and really it doesn't matter if they're equal on each side or asymmetric, because pumpkins are only perfectly symmetrical when we draw them that way. In nature they're not really. So this is my first pumpkin. It may not be the best pumpkin I've ever drawn, but it'll do. And then we want to put the stem on the top, and I like to make mine not quite rounded, but I like to make it with almost some straight edges and so on. And I've just put some texture lines in the middle there. Now what I can do here is, because this is a flexible nib, I can go back and I can add some thickness to the lines where I'd like them to be more in shadow. So that's at the bottom and up around the sides. And I do tend to add just a little bit to the top lines as well, because it not only adds shadow, but that darkness tends to suggest that these may be that little bit further away. I'm going to do the same with the stem a little bit there. And I'm going to get my finer pen out and I'm going to add some very fine lines here. What's fun to do this with is actually a black ballpoint pen, and I don't actually have one to hand. You get a pale grey when you do it very lightly, and you get very soft and subtle lines there. You can use a grey fine liner if you wish, whatever. Now I am going to add some shadow lines, some contour lines, and contour lines follow the shape of the object. Now with a pumpkin, because it's circular, it doesn't matter. We could go this way, you know, sort of like imagining how this would bulge out, and we make our pen move in that direction. Or we can do them vertically, and I prefer vertically for pumpkins simply because they have lines on them that are vertical, don't they? And so I want these to follow the shape of this segment, this part of the pumpkin. And an old worn out pen is perfect for this, I find, simply because it's a lot easier to get lines that are fainter or finer than with a new juicy pen with a decent nib on it that works in all directions. So I try to keep my old pens for as long as I can working with things like this. So that's got some shadow on it. Looks a bit odd on its own, so I'm going to do the same here. And for brevity, for the other pumpkins I draw, unless there's a need for me to add something different to them, I'm going to say I'm going to shade them in the same kind of way with pen, with these same kind of ideas, but I'm not actually going to do it. And I find flicking my pen gives these lines a chance to fade away as well naturally. So you get the darker line at the beginning, but then you get this fading away and breaking of the line as well, which adds interest to it. So that isn't as dark because I took a different approach to adding the lines. And this is similar to what a ballpoint pen would do. Knew I should have dug one out. Well, I was thinking about it and then I forgot to do it and I started the video, so this was probably not far away. So if I break for a moment, I may go and find that. And the further away you go, these segments that are the furthest away need to also be the darkest, because that helps to give that feeling of them being further away. But I don't want them completely black. Of course, the bottom needs to be darker than the top in some ways, because that is where the shadow would be greatest. Unless you've sat it on a light table. So there's our first pumpkin. Now, these aren't the only shapes that pumpkins come in. They can come in any kind of shape that you like, almost. You get ones that are taller and thinner. So let's create one that's taller and thinner. So I'm starting with this kind of shape. It looks like a strange bowling pin. Excuse me, just having some tea. It is Saturday morning. What time is it? Oh, it's 10:15. I've been awake since about 6 o'clock this morning. Now for these other ones, I do want them to go in kind of where this is, but I'm imagining that I've got this is on a circle, you know, because they're not flat, are they? They are, they're spherical, so a sort of ball shape, but a very strange ball. So my indent where it goes in will be a little higher than the original one, or the central one. And I'm making a bit of a mess down here, but it'll work out. And then I think I might just pop just another one in here, because although it's taller and perhaps thinner, you know, the segments may be taller and thinner, but that works out quite nicely. And again, let's put the stalk on it, and I again am making mine quite a random shape. And I'm having it look like it tilts away because that saves the confusion of trying to draw in anything, you know, the top part, you know, where it's been cut or broken. Because that can be a bit of a pain. I mean, there are ways of doing it, but you know, let's keep it nice and simple, because simple works. So there's that one. And here I am just using broken lines there to suggest texture. And in this one, I'm going to use very fine lines just to pick out areas where there may be a little bit more shadow, like so, and perhaps along the bottom there. I'm going to add some along this edge. I say shadow, more like, you know, what I said was the texture you get on pumpkins, isn't it? You get the major segments and then you've got these lines that fall down them. Fall down them? Go down them. Can I just say thank you to everybody who's left me such lovely comments about my autumnal drawing in my last video of all the pumpkins and everything else. Completely different kind of style of art than I've often shown, and I'm really heartwarmed and heartened to see how many of you really enjoyed that and the beautiful comments you've left. So thank you very much for that. You know, I do an awful lot of Zentangle style things and very stylized art, but it's nice when I do something that harks back to other days or other times or other ways I like to work, that, you know, it's appreciated. So there we are, 2 pumpkins. Now then, how about having one that is kind of on its side? So I am just drawing in how big I want this pumpkin. I'm tucking it behind the others. And yeah, strictly speaking, it should be, you know, if we're having it further back, then the bottom should be up a bit above the others. It's pencil, so we can adjust this. And I am going to pop here. Now I've got a choice, and I think I'll do 2. Where one I'll pop the stem towards the middle, and one I'm going to pop that stem sort of towards the top a bit. So I'm just drawing my stems in, bearing in mind there's going to be a central part and so on. And we'll start there, and oops, other pen. Start with this one where this is more or less in the middle. So here's my central part of the stem, and then I'm going to draw the stem kind of wibbly wobbly, and I'm going to pop some lines in because they are quite ridged, if I remember rightly. We do get pumpkins over here in the UK, but you know, they're usually bought for being carved at Halloween, as far as I know. So, as I said yesterday, I don't think I've ever eaten a pumpkin or any part of a pumpkin. I'm sure that will change at some point. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to draw some lines that go down, but I want to create little bumps between the sections, like so, and they don't all have to be the same size. So it's almost like drawing slices of, wedges of cheese all put together in a circle, but not quite. So that'll be fine. And where these go behind the other ones, you just still draw the bits in and leave that to the imagination. So we've got this here which looks pumpkin-y. What about this one? Well, this one here, we're going to have the top of the stem is here, and I'm just going to draw a shape in the middle to suggest it has a middle. And I'm going to draw this in as if it's wibbly and wobbly, just the same. And for this one, it's going to be the same kind of thing, where we're going to draw lines in with bumps out, but these lines need to be more curved. And at the bottom part, they're going to curve in opposite directions. Think about moving your finger on a ball. It would go this way in this direction and this way in the other if you were stroking a football or a round ball, round object. So we can get these in. Remember, we need them so they come back on themselves as if these are bulging out. And at the top here, they're going to bend also in other directions, like so. So we've got two pumpkins drawn from different directions there. I hope that made some kind of sense. And for these, I'll just start to put some shadowing in. There's going to be some underneath the stem, particularly on the bottom or the lower edges, not so much towards the top, but down here we can have a fair amount, I think. And then at the bottom, again, this is where we're going to have a fair amount of shadow. And here as well, there's going to be shadow where they overlap, so we want quite a bit of shadowing there. And again, it's about getting these lines to bend. And you can see which direction they need to bend. This way on this side of that wedge and this way on this side. And even in the centre they can bend as well. A little bit. Just starting to get that kind of feeling in. I'm not going to finish it, but this one, same kind of idea, but we've got larger sections to work with. Of course, it does depend on the size of pumpkin that you draw. And again, bearing in mind we're going to have quite a bit of shadow in places. So we need to make use of that shadow as well, is to add that shadow in with intense lines. Here I've made a mistake of making them all the same length, but we can break that up. And of course it's thinking about where we leave areas of highlight on this as well. So it's almost imagining that the light will come around in a certain, in a ring almost. But to the bottom of these as well, they're going to have a bit more shadow in around the edges. So I think hopefully you'll get the idea. Vary how long the lines are if you can. So we've got a whole range of, well, we've got a fair range of shapes of pumpkins there. But, literally the world is your oyster on these. Now then, what I do want to do here as well is that there is a Zentangle pattern called Gorgeous. sorry, tea. And I've got a piece of paper here. And I just want to show you Gorgeous. I don't think I'm going to pop it on here. But it's spelt Gord. Is it Gorgeous? It's either G-O-U-R-D or G-O-R-D, G-O-E-S. But you can find the deconstruction for it, or the what do you call it, the step outs for it, easily online. And it starts with an S shape like this. And you can see how that mimics this kind of shape here almost. It's a little bit different though. I'm going to carry that on to a teardrop shape because I'm going to use this as the place I start my first aura, like that. So I've gone around here to create my aura, but I'm not going to go back here again. I'm just leaving that as it is, as if we've got part of this is becoming, you know, a little stem. Then I'm going to draw in my next one, and next one, and then that one would go there, and so on. And I tend to do this, as you can see, where I do pairs of lines that are close together, and in between those pairs we've got a bigger space like that. And then you do the same here, where we're starting to bring all of these lines up towards the middle at the bottom, kind of like the centre of a pumpkin at the bottom. And I'm just going to add perhaps a couple more here just to close this off. Like so, as if we've got that there. Now, you can colour these in as you go as well. If you want them all black, you can do that. But I will show you some artwork I did this morning. Yeah, I've already been drawing for a while, trying some things out. And there I'm leaving that little gap in between where I'm going to put some highlights, or I can leave it as highlight, or I can completely fill it in black. And this intense shading, or the contrast here, really makes this a very dramatic and very voluminous looking pattern. So this could be included quite happily here. Oh, that was quite serendipitous, because it's gone back to connect with this to create my little stem there that's curled back on itself. I like that. And keep on going. So I don't want to, I want to keep mine in this kind of style, I think, because I quite like that. Okay, so as well as pumpkins, berries are one of those things that we have at this time of year. This is something I forgot to do, wasn't it? I forgot to go in and add some line weights here. I do want some line weights between these sections, as well as somewhere these little segments might be in shadow. And the same here, where just to help pick these segments out once you've added, or before you've added the shading, or afterwards, because they can get a bit lost with an intensity of shading. It will help to make sense later on as well. So there we go. That looks, they've got their shape more there, which is great. Okay, so I could do berries, or I could do leaves, and I think leaves would be quite nice. So what I'm going to do here is I do want to have some leaves coming out the side here and here. So I'm going to go outside my border, as often a thing for me. That's why I draw my borders quite wide. And for these, I'm going to want them 5-lobed. So I'm going to draw almost like a star pattern of veins in. So a little bit up from the stem here, and I've got 2 here that are shorter, 2 here that are a bit longer, and that's the longest one at the top. So, and these ones, the 2 at the base, so if I put a circle in, these 2 that go this way are pointing back down towards the stem a little bit. So if you think of a maple leaf or a sycamore leaf that has got these 5 lobes on it, you'll get the idea. So I am going to draw the lobes of my leaf down to somewhere in between these. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to draw the first big lobe like this. And you can see I've stopped it halfway or part of the way down here. It's not crucial about how far. I'm going to go back up. And can you see I went back up along the first stem a little bit, back down to the centre bit there, and back down to the middle there, and up to these. And then we're going to bring this up towards that central point, and these are going to close off. And I'm going to draw a nice fat stem there, and then I'm going to draw these lines in along the veins, starting at the tip of each lobe and bringing them back in like that. I'll do that again with this one. So I'm going to start here at the tip of my leaf. I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to go back towards the centre here. Then I'm going to draw up around and create a lobe here. And then the smallest lobe, I'm going to go back up and around and bring that back up towards that central point where all of these started. So here I'm going to draw this lobe in, and that lobe needs to join the end of this first one I drew in, the biggest one. Back down to the middle here, and then that lobe is hidden behind this pumpkin, so you have to imagine it's there. I'm going to draw the stem in, then I'm going to draw my first line in. Then from the tip of each leaf towards that middle bit, I'm going to draw the vein in. So we've got those kinds of leaves here, and they are a bit like pumpkin leaves. So I'm just going to finish these off by rounding in between the lobes, because I just think that it's just a look that I like. You can do that or not, and you can also choose to thicken. I always do to the left and the bottom. So that's my consistent way of adding shadow from a light source. It may not always be a realistic kind of result, but it's good enough for me. But it adds that thickness of line that suggests volume, that the leaf is a bit chunkier than it appears to be. So those are quite nice. Okay, I'm going to go back to my pencil, because I could put some more of these in here. But as I'm showing you how to draw things, I'm going to let's have a look at doing some oak leaves. So with oak leaves, I'm going to go back on myself like this. So we're having quite stylized ones today. So I'm going to start by drawing in my central stem. Again, I'm making the bottom that little bit thicker. Then from the bottom, I'm coming up, going down, coming up, going down, and I am creating a little cutout there in this version. So I'm curving around. It's a bit like a wave, I suppose. And they don't have to be symmetrical or exactly the same on each side. But I am going to carry my little middle stem on. And that gives me a nice shape for a oak leaf. What I am going to do is I am going to go to where these parts come down, and I am actually going to shape this a little bit with black. So I'm going to add my rounding, if you like, on this line that's going down. So there's the line. You can see it's like a rounded Y there. I want to make this into a V shape like that. And that's my oak leaf there. And I'm going to do another one on this side, but perhaps, shall I do one this side? No, I don't need to, but I think I might do another one here because I do like oak leaves. In the cemetery where I like to walk, there's a number of old oak trees. So you can see how I am I'm going to try to go out for a walk later today. I am. I've got to go somewhere tonight. I'm giving a talk somewhere about stuff. So I'm likely to want a nap this afternoon because I didn't sleep. I slept well, but I still feel tired, and it's quite a long, well, I say quite a long drive. It's not a long drive, but it'll be in the dark coming back. And I don't particularly like driving at night these days. I find car headlamps are just too bright, especially on darker roads and roads that aren't familiar to me. Now you can always add more veins to these leaves if you wish. I'm just going to go and sculpt some of these rounded areas because they're not fitting in nicely. And again, I'm going to pop some line weight to the left and bottom of these leaves, just to give that sense of volume. Like so. I've just realised I haven't done anything with the contour shading, have I, with the leaves? So we'll do that now. Oops, put my lid back on. Start with the oak leaves because they're nicest. I'm just going to pop some on one side of the leaf to begin with. And I'm going to have these lines coming away from the central part. I'm going to do the same on this one and I am just flicking my pen. Again, use an old pen if you've got one, or a ballpoint pen, or even a pencil would work for this. But you need quite a light touch to, even though at the beginning you still need to press the pen lightly to the paper, but it is flicking. So practice on a scrap piece of paper just to get the feel for this. And then on the other sides, I could put lines going that way, but I think I might just put some. And I am going to turn this around, so I'm flicking in the same direction because I know that you need to experiment to see how you get the best effects. And for me, it is flicking away from myself is how I get these finer, lighter lines that fade off. So here, by putting the shadow on the other side, is adding some dimension to the leaf. I've done the shadow right up to the edge of both the vein in the middle and the edge of the leaf, but with a bit of skill and practice or the use of a pencil, you could actually draw a line in there and flick there to leave a lighter area on the edge. But that is your choice. Now then, on this one, I'm going to think about where the shadows would be on each of these sections. So I'm going to the same kind of section each time, except I'm working in the wrong direction for me. Perhaps I haven't done that right, but I haven't actually. Let's have a look. That'll work. So I'm looking at these in terms of sections, I think, and I'm going to move this around, and then these long veins, that'll work better for me. I'm keeping them to the same side as I rotate my paper, and that creates a consistent kind of shadow there. And then I can go back and add shadow on the outer edges, just a hint of, just to bring those in. And can you see I'm moving the shadows with the edge of the leaf? So here I'm making, on the outside edge, I'm making the lines parallel almost to this little notch here between this big lobe and this next sized one down. And on this section I'm going to do the same here, and here the same, and here I've made a bit of a mess, but we'll do the same kind of idea regardless, because it will all work out in the end anyway. So there's some leaves for us. I did draw acorns yesterday, but I think I may put some acorns on a bit of a stem here. So let me just draw the stem in, and I'm going to put the bits of the stem that I want the acorns on in like this, and I'm going to decide where I'm going to put the first acorn, and I think here would be quite nice. So I'm going to draw the top of the acorn in, just as I did yesterday, in yesterday's video if you watched it. If you haven't, this is how we do acorns. I'm drawing a curved line around the bottom and filling the little spaces in so the line curves back on itself. And then I'm going to draw a curve that takes my acorn down to this little holder I've put there, this little kind of bobbly bit there, because we need somewhere to pop this. So let's put another acorn here. The nice thing about doing it this way is that I can decide then whether I want to add any more acorns in here. So let me add third acorn. Again, putting that cap in at the bottom. And I could actually squeeze another acorn or two in, I think. Let's have a look here. Let's get one in here. That one's going to go behind, which will be perfect. And perhaps I can have one that goes here, like so. So that would work quite nicely. So we've got some acorns there. And with these, I'm going to add shading on both the cup and the top of the acorn in this kind of way. So it looks, even though you can get marks on acorns that are vertical, I'm adding the shadow this way. Now let's not forget the little pointy bit on the top. That actually has a little round bit underneath it, but I'm just ignoring that. So I'm varying the length of these lines as well, just for interest, so they don't look too organised and manufactured, as it were, too precise. I do want to pop some shadow on the other side of the cups. So when the acorns fall out of them, they do look like little drinking cups. I think they're often shown in sort of like paintings of fairies and things as the drinking vessels they sometimes use. So there I've got my acorns there. Okay, on this side I'm going to put I'll put a stem of berries in that's coming from this leaf perhaps, or somewhere near this leaf. So I'm looking at how can I do this. So I'm going to do my stem like that, and I'm going to pop a berry on the end. I'm going to take a berry behind that one, put it on a stem, and have a couple of berries on another stem coming off. I'm just going to cluster them as they seem to want to fall here. I'm not worried about precision or anything else with them, as it were. They'll fall exactly where they need to fall, and I can decide when I've got enough berries here. And you can see I'm making my berries sort of like more oval than square, more elliptical. Not square, round. But you can make your berries any size and shape you wish. Oh, there's one that's a bit rounder, just snuck in there. And there's one just hiding behind the others. So there's some berries, and again we can add shadow to these quite quickly. And with these I'm going to do it in the same way that I did the acorns. Just on one side, I'm going to pick the left side of all of these. On that side, on this side, well, you sort of like have to use some kind of sense as to where you think these are likely to be in shadow. And what would make sense here. Got a fair bit of shadow there, so I guess these are kind of to the left and bottom, aren't they? So we've got our berries there. I'm very quickly I said I wasn't going to do that, but I know that I can just pop some shading in these quickly, just to get these all nice and finished like the others, because it does look a bit odd. And I also know that if I want to add any more shading, once I've added colour, I can always come back to these. Now, I know somebody's left a message about they can't wait for Christmas tiles and what have you, so I will start to think about that. It's not something I tend to do a lot of, but we'll see what I can come up with. So there we've got all of these. So what other things? See, I absolutely love seed pods, and anybody who knows me will know that I love seed pods. And I could put real seed pods in, I suppose, but I can also do quite stylized ones if I wish, because it's, well, it's my drawing, isn't it? But I don't think I will. Perhaps I'll do some other. I am just putting little bits on the ends of my berries here, because that happens as well. Perhaps I'll do some different leaves. Perhaps. Yeah, why not? Shall I, shan't I? So hard to know what to do. I think I'll go up round the border actually. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a sprig of leaves, or a little branch of leaves, or it could actually be the leaf of something like an ash or a rowan tree, which are made up of leaflets, little leaves. And so I'm going to start at the top here and put one leaf in, like so. Then I'm going to draw my leaf shapes in down the sides. And I am angling them, and I'm not being exact about making them the same shape or the same distance away. They will fit in as they need to fit in. But I am putting the stem in. Like so, and perhaps another leaf here that will go behind that one, because they can, and they do. And that means I can add another leaf here in a similar kind of way, like this. And I could squeeze one in there, but I'm not going to, and I'm just going to create the bottoms of these leaves just that little bit thicker, and adding a bit of rounding there just to attach them to the stem. I'm going to make the stem a bit thicker, and then we can add some shading to these leaves. I could put veins on them, that's always possible, but for shading I'm going to do it in a very similar way to the oak leaves and the others, where on one side I'm going to add shading that comes from the central vein. It doesn't take long because this flicking requires a very fast movement, and it does take a bit of practice to control the length of the line as you want it. And then, okay, so I've done that those sides. So I think these, which side? We'll do the lower side like that. So I've just got to get my hand in the right place for this, haven't I? Why is it so awkward to do? To work that one out. And this last one here. So I've got what appears to be the lower side of the leaves with the shadow coming from the stem. And then on the other side, I'm just going to put some very faint lines coming from the other side of the leaf, just to suggest perhaps some veins there, or just that hint of shadow and highlight, I suppose. Oops. Oh no, that's fine. It'll be all right. So we've got some there. And what I'm going to do at the bottom here is I think I may pop another acorn in here, just to make that feel a little less awkward here. So I'm going to do these at this side, like so, and perhaps just pop another one in here as well. So on these ones, I'm drawing the cup first, and I'm making the inner bits that little bit narrower than the cup. Don't know if you can see that as I was doing it. Don't forget the pointy bit. So I'm starting to get all kinds of interesting things. I could do with another leaf coming out here, so I'm going to do that. And because I like to draw these leaves with the guides in, because otherwise they all go odd. This just gives me that structure that I need to help me make these leaves look like they need to, or they should be in some way, the shape that I like them to be. Otherwise they end up all kinds of random shapes. So I am going to do the shadows from the veins on the top side as I bring the point of the point of the lobe towards my pen, like so. And there's another one in here, and then I'm going to do the shadows that come from the other side of the leaf on the side that is opposite that. So that's beginning to look quite nice. And I've spent ages doing this. How long? This has been nearly an hour. And I did say I wanted to add some shadow and highlight for you, and I will do. I'm going to do one of my pumpkins. Nope. But I need an eraser first, because I want to erase some pencil lines and things while I'm at it, just in case it won't erase once I've added some colour. These leaves as well. So this is going to be, and I've just bent my paper, it'll be fine. It'll be fine, I'll just sort it out. So I have got burnt orange here, and for this I'm going to pop the orange right at the top and bottom. I'm going to let the lines mostly do the work of shadows for me. I say mostly, won't entirely, but I think it'll be good enough for this. I have got a water brush here that still has water in it. I need to fill it up soon because it's nearly empty. So with Inktense or watercolour pencils of any kind, I like Inktense because they are really intense in colour, but they also dry permanently once the water's dried, obviously. So they don't move again, the colours, so you can layer colours. This paper isn't designed for watercolours or large amounts of water, but I've found I can get away with light washes like this. And it might wrinkle a little bit, but it dries really flat. I'll show you what I was playing around with earlier today, while I was trying to work out what I wanted to do today with you. Because sometimes I actually come and do this and I have an idea, or at least maybe not entirely thought out in my head what's going to appear on the paper, but I have an idea of what I'm going to do in terms of theme or pattern or whatever. So this seems the right thing to do today. So you can see how I'm leaving areas that are quite lighter and trying to keep the shadows to the edge, the top and the bottom. Here I'm going to have to come back and add some colour to add some shadow here. But that is the beauty of this. And at the bottom here, it's just pure colour. Here I'm going to add colour in. I want to keep the colour really rich at the top and bottom. But I also want to put some colour here where these would overlap as well, and on the edge, and where there's going to be shadow. But I'm doing this with this burnt orange, which is the colour I've added the orange with, but I'm going to come back with a darker colour to intensify these once this has dried. You can see the pen lines show through and they just help to add that kind of shadow to it. I can see that I need some more colour going up into the middle here because that highlight is just a bit too big. So always look away. The thing is, you can always add more, but you can't, if you're using something permanent like this, you cannot take it away. So you have to think carefully about what you're going to do. Well, I do. So that's one pumpkin. I've got another one here, and I've got a different colour. I've got red oxide here, which happens to be one of my favouriteest colours in the Inktense palette. And it is darker than that burnt orange. But I also have a madder brown. Yep, there's a brown called madder brown. Madder than what? I don't exactly know, other than it is just its name. Madder is a plant. And you get rose madder and so on. So I'm guessing it's a family of pigments or dyes that are used to colour things. So, and you can see here with this one, I've learnt my lesson from the previous one where I've put colour along where I want the shadowy edges to be, because I want highlights in some areas, and I'm making sure I'm adding colour so those highlighted areas will be a bit smaller. So this will be a reddish colour, but it'll be more rusty red. And I'm fine with that for pumpkins, because who says I can't have a rusty pumpkin? Of course I can. I can have any colour pumpkin I like. Because who says these are pumpkins from this world? And pumpkins are part of the gourd family, aren't they? And you get all kinds of colours of gourds. And all kinds of shapes. They're fascinating. I mean, the ones I'm most familiar with are courgettes and marrows, because those were the only kinds of gourds we had in the UK when I was growing up. Others weren't quite as common, or didn't seem to be. And I'm not a big fan of either in many ways. Though I did buy some round courgettes this week to use. But I'm visiting a friend tomorrow, so there won't be a video tomorrow. But there isn't always on a Sunday. And I'm taking courgettes, so we'll cook with courgettes. And I've got a glut of aubergines in my fridge as well, because I forgot to not order them this week for my weekly delivery. So that's looking good. The paper is wrinkling because it's damp. It needs to be left. Okay. I don't want to add any more until that has dried and so on. For my leaves, misses. I didn't get any leafy colours out for autumn, did I? No, of course I didn't. Let's have a look. I've got that colour. That'd be nice. What colour is this one? This one is, it's a red, a Shiraz. We need an orange to go in between. Oh, that's a poppy red. Actually, I could do with a pink or purpley colour. Is that mauve? That's thistle. Fuchsia's a bit bright. That's fuchsia again. Red violet will do. So I'm going to add some of these colours, and the tips of my leaves are going to be this reddy violet colour. Then I'm going to add, oh, that's not red violet, that is actually red. So this one's going to be red, orange and yellow, because the yellow will mix with the red. So let me put some yellow on this one towards the middle. Then I'll add some red, because I don't want to go straight into the red violet, because yellow and violet will make brown. But I can put this red violet on the tips of the leaves to give a much needed boost of colour here, hopefully. So I'm going to start with the yellow. Bear in mind, I don't have a lot of colour on here, but you can see that even with a tiny amount of ink, of the ink tents, you get an intense colour. That's why they're called ink tents, because they really are. And they really show their qualities when you add water to them. You can use them without. And I've actually been doing that, and I'll show you that in a moment. So I've got some reddish coloured autumn leaves there. And here again, I'm going to start with the yellow in the middle, because I want to preserve some of that yellow. I'm going to take it into the red, and then the red into that reddy purple colour, to the red violet. Colours aren't there yet, I have to say, and you know, this is foreshadowing of the autumn colours this year, and I hope they'll last longer than they have done the past few years. We seem to get a couple of days and then a huge storm comes along and everything gets blown off. So I've got that one there. Okay, so we've got those. I'm going to come back. I've got my madder brown here somewhere, that one. And I'm going to use that just to add some shadowing in on this particular pumpkin. The paper's not entirely dry, it does flatten actually. And this paper works quite nicely, even though it's not designed to, and it's quite resilient because it's got some cotton content. I think the cotton content is something like, it's 15%, I think, which isn't huge, but it does make the paper a stronger paper. And it does cope okay with a bit of water, even though it's not designed for water. So you can see this lovely browny colour is just adding that hint of shadow here. That I've added a bit much there, but it'll be fine. It's just helping to bring out the shadows there. Now then, for the highlights, I have got here a, oh, this is an antique white pen. I thought I had white. Obviously not. But it doesn't matter, it works either way. And I am just adding this white pencil as a pencil, and I am not going to add water to this. I'm leaving it on the top. And like white charcoal, this pencil won't shift and move once it's there. I can, if I want to, just blend the edge a little bit out, because sometimes the edge is a bit on the harsh side, or I want a softening of the colour, so I'll just use my brush just to soften that out. But that's brought the highlights up there. So that gives you an idea of what we can do here. The one thing I think I'll do is I'm going to add some colour to my berries. I'm putting the colour where I've put the shadow, because that's where I'll want the colour to be darkest. So again, I'm just going to work into the colour and then just pull a little bit out. And then I get the darkest colour at the bottom, and the rest of the berry is a lighter version of that colour. So I naturally get that highlight there, though if I want a more intense highlight, I can always use the white pencil. And I can also add, that's going to be a bit on the, gone and got some overspill there, that'll be fine. Perhaps look and see if I can just blend it out a little bit. So I'm working a little bit on the edge of the colour, and then I'm working back into the full colour. So I'm just taking a tiny amount from the edge to fill the berry in, and then I'm going back and activating the rest of the colour to create that shadowed area. And if I need a bit more colour in the rest of it, I can just bring that in at that point in time when I'm just adding that colour here. So some red berries there as well. It's all fun, isn't it? Well, I think so. And I'm allowed to. Okay, that's willow. I didn't want willow. I was hoping that would be baked earth. That's saddle brown. You can tell I really thought hard about this, didn't I? Gosh, why is it I can never find coloured pencils when I want them? And when I don't want them, they're the only ones that pop up. Crazy. Yeah. Oh, hang on, what's that one? Oh, it's willow again. Jeez. Okay, we'll use willow because it's the one that seems to want to come. It's not critical. The acorns, I'm going to use willow on the top, and I'll use a bit of, there's probably madder brown on the bottom, but we'll see. Bearing in mind, I'm putting the ink tents down where I want the most shadow, which is where I've put all of those lines. So I'm then going to ease it out. I would like a little bit more colour on this side, I think, than I've got at the moment, but I can adjust that later on. So there's enough there. And then what I think I might do is for the cups is use just a hint of the madder brown, just to give a little bit of variety. The cups are often a lighter colour than the acorns, but or darker, lighter, greener. I don't know. I think it just depends, but you know, I'm not drawing from, not creating something that's actually observational from reality. And that is a recipe for disaster if I'm adding colour. Drawing I'm fine with. Adding colour, nightmare. So there's my acorns. And again, I've got my white pen here. I didn't add any highlight to my leaves, but I might do just a hint here and there just to bring some in. On my berries, I'm just adding that white, not right at the edge, but a little bit further in, just to add that hint of light reflecting. And with these, I'm going to pop some down this side. I wasn't going to put highlight on these, but I am now because I want that little bit of a shadow around the edge. So the white there will do that. This is why it's lovely to work on something. Oh gosh, didn't notice the sun had come across. I do apologise. Great. It's lovely and sunny out and the world's gone mad already. Go on then. There. Yep. No, not quite. Go on. There. Okay. Sheesh. I'm sorry about that. I wasn't paying attention again to what was going on in the video. But you can see what I've created so far. And I've essentially used one colour more or less on everything. The leaves were a bit different. I have gone in and added a darker colour on the pumpkins to bring out those crevices and the white for highlights. But nothing fancy, nothing complicated. And I'm going to leave that now as it is. And maybe I'll revisit it in the next video. You'll have to let me know if that is something you would like to see. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you was what I was working at before I did the video. So bear with me. I'm just going to lift my camera up a bit so you can see this in its entirety, hopefully. Are we going to? Nope, the other way. Come on, down. Not quite. Actually, yes, we can do it that way. There. So this is where I'm working with simple colours and white highlights to create highlight and shadow. So you can see I've got some gorgeous going on here and variations of it, as well as this is Swerve, a Zentangle pattern. This one is a variation of Sand Swirl, but I can't remember what it's called. I'll remember to look it up and I'll let you know. And this over here, all of this here, is a variation of Hollis. Or at least it started like Hollis, a Zentangle pattern, and ended up a bit weird. Because that's what I do. And on this one, which I have finished drawing this, I'll add some colour to this one as well. And I may stick to monochrome colours with this because I am not at all sure about the browns I've put in here, to be honest. I like the blues and greens together though. And I have used charcoal grey here instead of black for the highlight for those sections to give a different kind of feel. And I think I prefer that to filling it in with black pen. But the black lines I'm going to add some white gel pen to when I've finished everything. Not sure what I'm going to do with all of these little seeds everywhere. The temptation to fill them with metallic colours is great, but that may not be the best thing for me to do. But I just wanted to show you that because essentially, you know, the ideas I've used in this for colouring are exactly the same as I did in that. So I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to see more things added to this, leave a comment, leave it in the comments and I will do. And if there's anything you particularly want to see, apart from people, possibly squirrels and foxes and animals, but things of, you know, botanical nature to do with autumn would be fine. Then make some suggestions in the box and I'll see what I can do. So if you're watching this Saturday, and Saturday the 24th of September, no video tomorrow on the 25th, so I'll be back on Monday if I've got enough energy. We'll see. So until then, you take care and find time to be creative. Ta-ra for now. Bye. Hoil.